Hi students, very good evening. I'm just waiting for the other students to join in. Start பண்ணலாமா? So we'll start the session. So இன்னைக்கு we are having the first session of the NEET Physics 11th standard. So I think all you guys are equally excited to start this NEET preparation. So before we get into the session, right, let me just give you some idea on what is it enna nama focus pannanom with regard to physics for our NEET preparation. Generally if you have any of your elder brothers or sisters or elder friends, right, avanga enna solluvaanga, they will say that with regard to NEET, mainly physics is the subject that they will feel it is really dreadful or it is really tough. And the nariya solluvaanga. Okay, so don't try to bother so much about what others will say. Then like, you know, if you focus on concepts part in physics, right, adilende the application level questions agatum or whatever the kind of sums that you will see in physics, adella easy ah solve pannala. So ore enna, like, you know, oru biology மாதிரி இல்லைன்னா ஒரு chemistry மாதிரி இதில் நிறைய நீங்கள் மகப் பண்ண மாதிரி அந்த ஒரு தாட்டில் இருந்தால் you will always have the issues. So we just need to make sure that we try to understand the concepts thoroughly. So concepts thoroughly நம்ம புரிஞ்சிட்டா then, you know, we will be able to answer any kind of questions that will come. Okay guys, so I hope we are clear in the way we will approach physics, and as we go into the sessions, right, if you have any doubts or anything, the way we will have the sessions is on the chat box the video killer, you can see that there is a chat window. The comments madri you can just type in the doubts illa clarification vanda, you can just, you know, type it over there. Adu paathuta I will be able to even give the response during the session itself. Sessionly I can clear the doubts. Okay, illanna even session mudinjadukku appuram I will again be able to post my responses. ஏதாவது கொஞ்சம் டீட்டெயில்டான ரெஸ்பான்ஸ் கொடுக்கணும்னா I will also be able to give some video response also in that. Okay, we'll start students. So first, what is it that we see as important thing in physics? Like say ஏதாவது நம்ம observation. So observation சொன்னது, like say you see somebody who is just we will also be doing like this, right, the bubbling. Okay, so you take the thin, you know, in a stick madri irukum, adu edutittu we will just keep it in the soap water, and when we take it out and then blow the air, the madri oru bubbles varum. Okay, so this is a game that we see a lot of students, I mean, you know, you also probably I mean, you know, summer time or whenever you mingle with other students, you will see that people are playing this. But idhil enna, like, you know, when you look at any observation, so this is a very simple observation, நம்ம surroundings la irukra ஒரு observation da idu. When you see this observation, right, if you are a chemistry student, neenga or chemistry student irundha, then your thought process will be like, என்னது, what is there in the bubble, what is the chemical composition, அதோட chemical composition என்ன, what is the molecules of this soap made up of, அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு thought போகும். Okay, if you are a biology student, so I am just going to take only the parts of science. So if you are a biology student, right, adula enna like what can be the organisms that are there in this particular thing, I mean in this environment can there be any living entity, and madiri or thought pogum. Okay, but if you are a physics student, okay, so your thought process will be always on the measurement part. So eppadi indha madiri or shape eppadi varudhu, how the bubble is taking that spherical shape. Okay, adoda radius evla, and the radius gu in the nama blow panna the speed of blowing the air adukku idukku adha relation iruka. So அந்த மாதிரி எல்லா measurement ஓடதுல we will be trying to focus on. Okay, so if you look at physics part of it, generally saying, right, physics la we are going to be learning about physical quantities. edu patti we will be learning about the physical quantities. Physical quantity enna, we will see the definition of the physical quantity, like if you talk about the size of that the bubble oda size, the radius of the bubble, இல்லைன்னா அதோட ஏரியா, சர்ஃபேஸ் ஏரியா ஆஃப் த பபிள், இல்லைன்னா வால்யூம், இதெல்லாம் ஃபிசிக்கல் குவான்டிட்டிஸ் தான். த ஸ்பீட் வித் விச் வி ஆர் ப்ளோயிங் த ஏர், அது ஒரு ஃபிசிக்கல் குவான்டிட்டி. ஸோ எனிதிங் வி கேன் மெஷர், anything which we can measure, right, is basically called as what? Physical quantity. So physics enna we are going to be focusing on physical quantities. Okay, so to summarize or simple summarize பண்றதுக்கு என்னன்னா like we are going to be learning about the physical quantities, and we will look at the relations between them. அவ்வளவுதான். So இப்போ எல்லா physics ஓட +1 +2 ஆகட்டும், or even the higher standards, right, physics and சொன்னா what is it that we are going to learn? We are going to learn about the physical quantities. Okay, so இப்போ 10th standard la பார்த்தா we have learnt about what? Current என்னது. Okay, we have learnt about charge. அதுக்கப்புறம் we have learnt about electric potential. அதுக்கப்புறம் we have learnt about work. So இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய physical quantities ஓட என்ன, what is the definition of the physical quantity, what is the meaning of the physical quantity. அதுக்கப்புறம் we may find it little bit difficult in understanding about the physical quantities. Some of us might find it difficult in getting the relations correct. If you are able to get these two things correct, means then our physics part of it will be very much easy. Clear, students? Okay, so we will get started. Now this is the first observation we are looking at. So earth observation pola, we will go to the next observation. Say for example, if I suddenly ask you guys to look at outside the window, so வெளிய பார்க்க சொன்னா, then what is it that you will be able to see? So again, முன்னாடி மாதிரி like if you are looking at from a biology point of view, right, அதுல என்ன வருது, you will be looking at what these leaves are made up of. Okay, so what are the metabolism that is happening in these leaves, அதெல்லாம் வரும். But if you are a chemistry student, you will think about the chemical composition, அதெல்லாம். If you are a physics student, right, your eyes or focus will go on to whether there is a motion for these leaves or not, what is the length of these leaves, what is the area, in the madri shape varudhu. So like all these things related to the physical observations. Okay va? And similarly, anything we look at, like say for example, if you look at a road, so and you see that there is a car on the road, first observation, and what is the first observation we are going to make? Our first observation will be on what is the speed of the car, what is the distance moved by the car, and the madri or observation pogum. Okay, so this is what is the difference between the way we see things in terms of chemistry, the way we see things in terms of physics, and the way we see things in terms of biology. Okay, so the more we are able to see things along the lines of physics, right, that much easy it is going to become for us to master physics. Okay, students, so we'll get started with our first chapter. So what is it that we are going to cover in this chapter? Actually from NCERT odidilla we'll have this split into two chapters. Physical world thaniya varum, and units and measurement will come separately. but we will cover both these chapters together. In the physical world you will just have basic definitions adha varum. Okay, so what is it that we are going to cover in this chapter? Okay, so first enna we'll start with understanding of the physical quantities, or physical quantity enadhi. Okay, and we will look at some of the common physical quantities that we will see in our entire 11th and 12th syllabus, right? So full +1 +2 syllabus, we are going to cover different physical quantity. Or chapter we are going to get new physical quantities. Okay, so idu konde end irukadu, like even like beginning first chapter, the units and measurement is our first chapter, right? Last chapter in +2 is semiconductors and communication systems. Adiliyum we will be covering some new physical quantities. So it is a continuous, but the thing is we will try and see up to some level we will try to cover the physical quantities. Okay, we will get understanding of the physical quantities, but idhula ore oru idenna we should be clear that this is a continuous process. Every chapter we are going to get new physical quantities. Okay va, adukapra enna we will look at the measurement of the physical quantities and sonna measure pandradhukku we will be requiring something called as a base value of measurement. Base value anadi, like say for example, if I ask you what is the distance between the place where you are sitting and your living room, appadi ketta, then what is the thing that you will say? Maybe 20 feet irukum illa 15 feet irukum solittu you may give the response. So adula feet is what, it's basically the base value. So if I ask you from your house what is the distance to the airport, or what is the distance to the railway station, you will be giving some answer like maybe over 10 kilometers, something like that. You will give an answer. Apadi, like if you say 10 kilometers, right, idula kilometer anadi, that is the base, that is what you call as the unit. So we will learn about what are the physical quantities and what are the units of the physical quantities. Okay, and then we will get into something. Idula already we have some idea. So physical quantities anadi and what are the units of the physical quantities, right? Already in our 10th standard, 9th, 8th we have covered some physical quantities. 7th we covered some physical quantities. 6th we would have covered some physical quantities. Okay, so idu oru pudusa nama padikkiradhu kedaiyadu. We already have some orientation, but adilande eppadi, how do we really understand the physical quantities and the physical quantities nadula irukka relations, what are the relations between the physical quantities, adella nama idhula cover panna porom. Okay, then we also look at the units of the physical quantities. Pudusa varadhenna this thing, dimensions. So we will learn about dimensions and something called as dimensional analysis. Nariya NEET la pathina we will mainly get questions from these two areas. Okay, dimensions la varum illana dimensional analysis la endu varum. Like even if you look at last year paper, every NEET paper, right, if you look at it, compulsory oru question varum idhula endu, dimensions la endu. Okay, so dimensions edukanna, dimensions are there for the physical quantity. Okay, we will learn about it. Okay, so dimension anadi for every physical quantity, right, we will be able to give the dimensions. For every physical quantity we will be able to give the dimensions. Okay va, so we will learn about what are dimensions and what is this dimension analysis. Okay va, adukaprom we will talk about how do we measure things. Eppadi measurement, how do we measure things, how do we take the readings, how do we observe these recordings. At the measurement landu we will be getting into the error analysis. And every measurement, say for example even in 10th standard, right, science lab la you will be measuring certain or length agatum or whatever thing you are measuring. Kandipa adula your reading and your friend reading or your batchmate reading, definitely adukku indukku difference varu. And the difference varudana, this is because there will be always something called as an error. Okay, so error eppadi varudhu, what are the different types of errors, adella namma we will cover in the error analysis. Clear students? So this is broader namma paakanona, this is what we will be having. And mostly NEET perspective la we will get questions from dimensions and the mother in the dimensional analysis. We will cover this. Now don't worry about that, don't think about it now. When we go to that particular topic only, you will be able to understand it. Okay, then the other area for getting questions is this. Idhil endi questions varum. error analysis landu you will get questions. So these are the two areas where we will get questions from the NEET point of view. Okay students, so let us just start with the definition of a physical quantity. Physical quantity enadhi, what is the physical quantity? Okay, so like idukku munna nama sonna madiri, what is a physical quantity? It's a quantity. So quantity enadhi, quantity and sonna anything which is having measurable, that is what you will be calling as a physical quantity. Anything, so generally solradhukku anything which is measurable, right, we can call it as what? Physical quantity. Adu oru length agatum, mass, time, force, even we can area, nariya volume. Okay, adukaprom we can talk about, so whatever the acceleration. Okay, so all different, anything which we can measure, right, will be called as what? Physical quantity. The physical quantity oda attributes and physical quantity and it will be clearly defined. So if I say acceleration, adukku there should be a clear definition. Like already we know 9th standard la we studied acceleration, right? I think நம்ம recall பண்ணலாம். What is the definition of acceleration that we study? Acceleration, how do you define it? It is the change in velocity, and acceleration oda formula enna? Change in velocity by the time taken. Adana formula, acceleration oda formula. Okay, so which means we are giving a clear definition for the acceleration. So every physical quantity, right, it will be having a clear definition. And rendavadu enna, it will be having proper units. What is a unit? We will see. Unit is ippodukana what we can think of unit. Unit is like the base, and the quantity oda measurement nam edukumbodhu we require a base value, right? That base value is called as what? Unit. So what is the physical quantity? Anything which can be measured is called as what? Physical quantity. So physical quantities will be clearly defined and they will have proper units. Okay guys, so this is what is the definition of an physical quantity. Okay, now if you are having any doubts or anything you want to discuss, you can just post it over there in the comments window. We'll be able to take the responses. Okay, now let's just look at one question. I think Roshna probably is a student of this class. Another, what is it? Roshna says that she is describing the following set as physical quantities. So what is she saying? She's saying she is describing the following set. Following set and they are giving some things here. Okay, what are the things that they are giving? Atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure and it is the pressure created by the atmosphere. Adukapram they are talking about hydraulic pressure. Hydraulic pressure and it is the pressure created by the fluids. What is hydraulic pressure? It is the pressure created by the fluids. Okay, we will learn about this. Tanya, we have a chapter, properties of fluids and solid. We have a chapter, we will learn about that. Okay, adukapram gas pressure. So what Roshna is saying is that the atmospheric pressure, hydraulic pressure and gas pressure, right, she is saying that all these are physical quantities. A question is he correct in calling each of the pressures as a different physical quantity? What is the question they're asking? Maybe you can just type the response over there. What is she saying? She's saying that atmospheric pressure, hydraulic pressure and gas pressure. She's saying what? All these are different physical quantities. The question is, can she call each of them as a different physical quantity? Apdi, can you classify each of them? Atmospheric pressure taniya, hydraulic pressure taniya and gas pressure taniya, can we classify them as different physical quantities? That is the question. Apdi panna mudiyuma? Think about it students. Can we do like that? What is the answer? No. Why? Because all of them are referring to the same physical quantity. What is it? Pressure. One physical quantity da. So there are no multiple physical quantities. Okay, so pressure another one physical quantity. Pressure may be created because of the atmospheric effect. Pressure may be created because of the fluids. Adukada we are calling it as what? Hydraulic pressure and solid. pressure may be created by the gases, we call it as what? Gas pressure, but all of them are referring to the same physical quantity, which is the pressure. Clear? And madri, like, we can also look at like this. If somebody says frictional force, if somebody is saying frictional force, magnetic force, okay, gravitational force, okay va, அப்படி தனித்தனியா நம்ம இதெல்லாம் ஒரு different physical quantity எடுக்க முடியுமா? Can we take them as different physical quantities? அப்படி எடுக்க முடியாது. All of them are what? Same physical quantity, which is the force. So frictional force is because of a different reason. A magnetic force is coming because of the different reason. Okay, அதுக்கு ஒரு தனி reason இருக்கா? It will be between the magnetic substances. Gravitational force and சொன்னது, earth will attract every object towards itself. That is other, we call it as what? Gravitational force, right? So all these are referring to the same physical quantity, force. We cannot call them as different physical quantities. Clear, guys? Now let's look at another question. I think Rachel is probably also one of the student of this class. So look at this. Rachel says there cannot be more than 250 physical quantities. Rachel is saying what? What she is saying? She is saying that there cannot be more than 250. So she is putting a limit. Is it possible to fix the total number of physical quantities like this? See, as I said, the idea of physics is what? About different physical quantities. So even today, right, we don't know that whether the physical quantities known to us are the total list or not. So we will not be able to put a limit saying, okay, the number will not be more than 200, the number will not be more than 250. அப்படி நம்ம ஒரு limit fix பண்ண முடியாது. Because as science is progressing, right, திடீர்னு for, tomorrow somebody might come and discover a new physical quantities. So the advancement in physics will happen through the discovery of new physical quantities, right? So we may not be able to put a limit. So if Rachel is saying that she can put a limit on the number of physical quantities, we will not be able to do it. Clear, guys? Can we keep a limit like this? No. As things are progressing, right, we may discover new and new different physical quantities. Like chemistry, you will be discovering new elements. Like last year also people have discovered new elements. And even in physics, right, the progress will happen through the discovery of the new physical quantities. Okay, students? So we cannot put a limit on the number of physical quantities. Okay, va? So Rachel, is she correct? No, she cannot put a limit on the number of physical quantities. Now we will look at the next important thing. Classification of the physical quantities. The classification enna paatha, like, if you look at the physical quantities, right, sonna madiri there is no limit on the number of physical quantities. Adu, up to our 10th standard, right, maybe we have covered or get that over 50 physical quantities we may have covered. Like, even after this class, right, in the class mudinadukapra you can just go and write down enna physical quantities you already are aware of. Just take a paper and then try and write down. And maybe in the next class, right, next class you can just tell me how many physical quantities names you are able to put it. Maybe we have learnt about or 50. And in our plus 1 plus 2, because the physics in plus 1 plus 2 is not the total physics, right? So this is called as what? Intermediate physics nu solluvanga. Okay. So in our plus 1 plus 2, we may see some 100 plus or pulsa or 100 plus physical quantities we might see. But there may be more physical quantities. But the thing is, when you look at the physical quantities, right, it is not like everything is separate. When you see the physical quantities, they are related. So all the physical quantities, right, they are basically what? Related. It is not like all are related, but we can see relations. And the relation based panna, the physical quantities are divided into these two categories. I'll tell you, in the definition, I'll tell you a little bit later. But look at the classification first. What is the classification? All the physical quantities, right? They are divided into two categories. Fundamental set one, derived. So we are dividing all the physical quantities into these two categories. Fundamental category one, second the derived category. And when this classification is done, right, what is the basis? What is the basis on which the classification is done? Okay, so look at the basis carefully. First, there is a set of quantities which are taken as the fundamental. First of all, what is the basis? Or a set of quantities are taken as what? Fundamental. Adukku basis enna theriyuma? The fundamental, whatever you are choosing, let us say for example, or 10 physical quantities, we are calling it as fundamental. The number is not actually 10. We will see exact number and so we will see later. But if or 10 physical quantities, you are saying them as what? Fundamental. Appadi sonna, the physical quantities, right, they will not be dependent or they will not be related to the other. So fundamental irukra oru 10, let's say we are having 10 quantities as fundamental, and the 10 quantities adukulla you will not have any relation. So between one quantity and another quantity we will not have any relation. Means what? One quantity, one quantity, they will be totally independent. That is what will be the fundamental physical quantities. So what is the definition of fundamental physical quantity? Fundamental physical quantity does not depend. Maybe you can just make a note of the definition, because if you look at the normal school exams, right, NCERT, CBSE agatum, or even the Tamil Nadu State Board, if you have a question on this, you will get questions like this only. They will ask, write the definition of fundamental quantities and derived quantities by giving examples of two each. Appadida question irukum. So you should be also practicing along those lines. But yeah, look at this guys. What is the definition? Fundamental is what? These fundamental quantities, between them they will not have any relation. Between the fundamental quantities they will not be having any relation. That is fundamental quantity oda classification. So what are these fundamental quantities? Length, mass, time. We will see in the next couple of minutes. We will see that totally how many are there. There are actually 7 fundamental. How many fundamental are there? Totally there are 7 fundamental quantities. Adukappuram derived and sonna enadi, we already taken one fundamental set. We have taken one fundamental set, right? So what is the fundamental set? I am saying 7 are there. So these are derived quantities, we can derive them. We can derive them from where? From the fundamental. Derive and what do you mean by derive? Means we can relate. I'll just give you one simple example. Say for example, we are talking about the length as a fundamental and time as a fundamental. Okay, va? Then look at this speed. Speed and so now what is the definition of speed? Speed is the distance by time. Distance means what? Length. Dana. Distance is what? Length. Okay. Distance is what? Length. Divide by time. So you see that clearly, speed we are able to relate to the length and time. Length is a fundamental, time is also fundamental. Because speed will be called as what? Speed will be called as a derived quantity. So what is a derived quantity? Anything which we can derive from the fundamental set is called as what? Derived quantity. Clear? So this is the classification on the basis. Fundamental, right? So how many fundamental are there? 7. These 7 fundamental, in between them they are not dependent. Okay, so fundamental, they are not dependent on each other. And derived means what? All those quantities which can be derived from the fundamental. So when you look at this classification, right, this classification is based upon 2 important factors. Look at this. This is very important. See, always, right, the preparation for the school exam will go like this. Okay, so preparation for school exam is what? Or fundamental quantity annadi, adura definition, adukaga examples. So this is how the preparation for the school exam will go. And always whenever there is a concept, right, there will be some boundary, there will be some conditions. Most of the times the NEET or any competitive examinations la, you will get questions touching upon those boundaries and conditions, and that is where if you are not preparing comprehensively, then you will miss out all these questions. Okay, so you will not be getting questions in NEET exam like is acceleration a fundamental quantity or derived quantity. Appadi you will not get questions, but I will show you what kind of questions we will get in the NEET examination. But yeah, look at this. Okay, so we will mostly get what kind of application level questions. And the two parameters, and what are the two factors? The classification, right, should be exclusive. Exclusive and sonna, what do you mean by exclusive? If you go to a store, right, exclusive men's and poduvanga, illana exclusive women and poduvanga. Exclusive and the taniya, like you have it separate. So exclusive means what? If you have length, either length will be in the fundamental set illana derived. So you have two categories, right? The classification is what? Exclusive. So we cannot say okay, length can be here and also here. Appadi sonna mudiyadu. So we should have what? Exclusive. Adu onnu. Rendavathu exhaustive. Exhaustive and sonna enadhi? Exhaustive means, so sometimes we will say okay, romba exhaustive ah irukadhu nu solittu. Exhaustive means what? Complete. Means we are not leaving anything out, which means whatever, let's say we are having some 180 physical quantities, then all of them should be divided. Okay ba? And if tomorrow somebody is coming up with oru pudusa or 181 physical quantity, somebody is discovering a new physical quantity, then we should be also able to categorize it. So the classification, right, should be what? One, it should be exclusive. Rendavathu, it should be what? Exhaustive. So these are the two important factors. So that is what I am saying. So our preparation, right, should be also looking at these conditions. So what are the boundaries in which we are dividing the physical quantities into fundamental and then derived? Okay, so let's look at what are these 7 fundamental. We said how many fundamental are there, guys? 7 fundamental. And then what are these 7 fundamental? I think some of us may be already aware of these things. So look at this. First, another length. It is not like it is like 1, 2, 3, 4 appadi or numbering kadiyadu. Just know here we are just giving it for our reference. Okay. So length, adukapra mass, then time, then electric current. Already 10th standard we have current and electricity chapter, right? Adula we talked about the electric current. Okay. Adukapra na temperature. Then we have quantity of matter. So quantity of matter, people also call this as amount of substance and soluvanga. It can be also called as what? Or textbooks they will be giving it as what? Amount of substance or amount of matter. Okay. So what is the difference between mass and quantity of matter? These two look similar, right? But mass is different and quantity of matter is different. Okay. Quantity of matter, this is mainly related to the measurement of things in terms of number or count. It is related to mostly what? The measurement of things in terms of number or count. So in 9th standard chemistry, right, even in plus 1 chemistry also you will learn about it. You would have learnt about something called as a mole. You would have learnt about something called as what? Mole. Mole and then what is this mole? Mole is collection of ethane particles 6.022 into 10 to the power of 23. This number is also got another name. What is the number? I hope you guys can recall it. What is the number, guys? It is also called as what? Avogadro number. So if you have 6.022 into 10 power 23 particles, right, this is also called as what? Avogadro number. And if you have the measurement of particles in terms of the count or number, that is what we will be calling it as what? The quantity of matter. Okay, wow. So mass is different, quantity of matter is different. Quantity of matter, we will be talking in terms of the number of particles or the count of particles. Okay, then there is a seventh one which we don't use much in our entire +1 +2 syllabus, right? We will not cover about this. And the luminous intensity. Luminous intensity, it is about the intensity of the light. Luminous means what? Light related. Okay, so luminous intensity anadi, it is about the intensity of the light. We have optics. In +2 we have optics chapter. Tanya we have two chapters. One is ray optics and second is what? Wave optics. But even in those two chapters, right, we will not be covering about the luminous intensity. But here it is a fundamental physical quantity, so we need to understand about what is this luminous intensity, and it is about the intensity of the light. Adukku mela we don't need to really focus on that. We will not be studying much about this quantity itself. Just other definition mattum therinja podu. Okay, so these are the 7 physical quantities, students. And idhil enna theriyuma, mostly these 5 we will cover thoroughly in physics. Quantity of matter, it will come for you in chemistry part of it. Luminous intensity, it is about physics, but we don't cover about it in the +1 +2 physics. Adha na sonna theriyuma, the physics that we study in +1 +2 is not the total physics, it is the intermediate only. Okay, so these are the 7 fundamental physical quantities. Now if you look at the derived quantities, like sonna madri, there will be several derived quantities which are related to the fundamental set in different ways. So read this carefully. There are several derived quantities. Each of them will be related to what? Fundamental set, and each of them will be related in a different manner. Okay, say for example, already we looked at it, right? Speed or a definition. Speed means what? Distance by time. Distance is nothing but length. Distance is what? Length divided by time. So we see speed is a derived quantity. It is depending upon what? Length and time. It is depending upon the length and time. And the madri, if you look at velocity. What is velocity? Velocity or definition, it is the displacement by time. What is velocity? Displacement by time. So displacement means what? If you are moving from point A to point B in whatever path, the shortest distance, straight line distance between the initial point and final point, right? Adana displacement means what? Displacement is nothing but shortest distance. Displacement is nothing but shortest distance. Okay, wow. So shortest distance by the time taken. 3 distance and another length dana. So length by time. Okay, so again what we see, that velocity is also related to what? Length and time. Now we can see, if you talk about acceleration and so on. What is acceleration? Acceleration is the change in the velocity divided by the time taken. Suppose, say for example, change in velocity means what? It will be the final velocity minus initial velocity by the time taken. Each velocity will be related to what? Fundamental. So which means the acceleration is also related to what? The fundamental set. So what we see is that the derived quantities, all of them, right, they are basically related to what? The fundamental physical quantities. And generally how the derived quantities are related to fundamental physical quantities, we can learn about this when we will come to the units of these derived quantities, or when we come to the dimensions. Remember, in the beginning, the overview I showed you the dimensions. So how a derived quantity is related to the fundamental set. You can know the relation when you see the units or when you see the dimensions of the particular derived. If acceleration or a unit path, then you will know how acceleration is related to the fundamental. Or if you see the acceleration or the dimensions, then you can see how acceleration is related to the fundamental set. Okay, So this is how we look at the classification as fundamental and derived. Okay guys, so any doubts means you can just keep typing over there in the discussion window, and we will be able to check it. Okay, let's come to the question. So we have the question number 3. Look at this question, students. I want all of you to check this question. So what is this question? 4 students, I think this is also related to our class only mostly. 4 students, okay va? 4 students gave us responses on the reason for number of fundamental physical quantities being 7. So 4 students are giving us reason on why the number of physical quantities is being 7. Decide who is correct. So we have to go through all these 4 options. So for competitive examination, we will say that these are MCQ type of questions where you will have 4 options. Okay, but if you see our NEET examination, we have how much time? 180 questions we should solve in 180 minutes. Means one question you will have only how much time? 1 minute. So the best way that we will keep suggesting students is the question. If you read the question right, don't think about the options. Try and work out the question. On the options you will take at least 10-15 seconds. You do the question by yourself, and then once you get the answer, try and check where is your answer. But these type of questions, right, you cannot take that approach. They're asking us what? 4 students are giving different responses, and you have to tell which is correct. Means unless you go through these options, or option we have to read it, and then we have to check whether it is correct or not. Adilanda you will be able to solve these kind of questions. So we will call these type of questions as the cluster question. Cluster question enna like it is like 4 questions put into one. It's not like 4 questions are put into one question, but you have to read each and every option and decide upon the option whether it is correct or not. Okay, so let's look at one by one option, guys. First, so the question is what? The fundamental physical quantities are 7, and 4 students are giving different answers. We have to see who is correct. First, Rachel. Okay, so what is Rachel saying? Rachel is saying that 7 is a magic number. Is it because of that? No, right? It is not because of it is a magic number or anything. Okay, then Seshalakshmi, what she is saying, Anandi, what she is saying, look at this. 7 most common quantities are chosen as the fundamental set. Is it correct, guys? No, right? Because we did not say 7 most fundamental or 7 most common. It is not about 7 most common or any of these things. The selection of fundamental is not about the most common quantities. Okay, then look at what is Aisha saying. Aisha is saying that because all the other quantities can be derived from the chosen 7 fundamental set. This is the correct one. So why did we choose those 7 as the fundamental? Those 7 fundamental, right? Once we have chosen, and our combination, what is the combination? Length, mass, time. What is the 7 set, guys? The temperature, electric current, amount of substance or quantity of substance, and then luminous intensity. These are the 7 fundamental. So these are chosen because using these 7 fundamental set, we can derive the rest all. Using the 7 fundamental set, we can derive the rest all. That is why we are taking these 7 as what? Fundamental. If we are not able to derive, and the 7 we are not able to derive the all other quantities, right? Then we would probably increase this number. We will probably be increasing this number. Clear, students? So what is our answer? Who is correct? Aisha is actually correct. Okay, but we look at option D also. Shivanya, right? She is saying that 7 is the number of days in a week and it is a good reference. Is it about that? No, right? It is not about the number of days or anything. Clear, students? Now let's look at one more question. So whoever is able to give the correct answer for this, right? I think they have understood this concept thoroughly. look at this, students. Who is able to give correct answer for this? It means, they have got the concept thorough. So what is it? In a hypothetical case means what? This is not the real one. Okay. In a hypothetical case, there are 99 physical quantities. How many physical quantities are there? 99 physical quantities are there, of which 9 are fundamental and the rest all are what? Derived. Means, what is the number of fundamental? 9 are what? Fundamental. Matadella derived. Means, totally what is the count? 99, right? 99 and 9 in the bakapona, then what is the remaining count? 90 will be what? Derived. So, fundamental are 9, 90 are what? Derived. Now look at the question. If a new 100th quantity is identified, Pudusa we are getting one 100th quantity, which has no relation to the existing fundamental set. Underline this. See, whenever you see a question, right, you will see that particular and the critical statement. You will see the critical statement. So here, what is the critical statement that you have to underline and read it one more time? I mean, initially when you are practicing these questions, you will read it one more time, but it becomes habitual for us as you practice more and more, right? That's a habit. So whenever you see a question, right, your eyes will be more focused on the critical statement. You will look at it. Those students who focus more on this critical statement, right, they end up getting most of the answers correct. So look at this, guys. What are we saying? The 100th new quantity identified has no relation to the existing fundamental set. And the existing fundamental set is 9. How 9 are there, right? The 100th quantity, right, is not related to the existing fundamental set. Then what must be the classification of this new quantity? That is the question. So question is what? We have to identify what must be the classification of this new quantity. In the question, the critical statement, what is the critical statement? The 100th quantity has no relation to the existing fundamental set. So before I go and answer this, let's look at the option D and option C. Let's look at these two options one time. Or just look at these option C and option D. Option C, what they are saying in option C, it can be placed in any group. Remember we said the classification has got two important factors. What are the two important factors? The classification is what? Exclusive. Rendavathu, it is exhaustive. The classification of the quantities is what? Onnu, it is exclusive. Rendavathu, it is what? Exhaustive. So exclusive and sonna, either it will go here or there. So you cannot say that okay, it can be placed in any group. Clear, students? So this is not going to be happening. Why? Because look at our two factors. Then option D is saying what? It cannot be classified. Remember what we said? This classification is also what? Exhaustive. Even if you are getting a new quantity, that new quantity also we must be able to include. The new quantity also we must be able to include. So the classification is what? Exhaustive. So you cannot say that we will not classify it. Okay. Then the thing is, we have to choose between option A and option B. So if you read the critical statement of the question, right, we already have the 9 fundamental. Okay, we already have the 9 fundamental. Adilandu, whatever you are able to derive is what you will call as the derived. Either derive panna mudiyumo, adha you call it as what? Derived. But pudusa on the new 100th quantity, right? Is it related to the existing fundamental set? No. Which means, can you derive it? We cannot derive it. Appadi derive panna mudiyalanna, we cannot call it as a derived. So if you are not able to derive means you cannot be calling it as a derived. So it means what? It cannot be placed as a derived quantity. Then where it has to be kept? It has to be kept in the fundamental. The new 100th quantity, right? It has to be kept in the fundamental. Why? Because remember the statement we said about fundamental, and the fundamental quantities, they are independent of each other. The fundamental quantities, they are independent of each other. using the fundamental we can derive all the others, and the all others and சொன்ன தெரியுமா, that is what you call as the derived quantities. That is what we will be calling as the derived quantities. Clear students? So what is the answer for this? We should be putting this 100th quantity in the fundamental set. Okay, now we'll go on to the developments. The development is after this fundamental set of quantities is described and all that, ella follow பண்ணதுக்கு அப்புறம் people figured out that the angles are also important in science, especially physics. Like we will talk about something called as angular motion and solid thaniya, we will talk about it. So our second chapter, now we are in the first chapter, right? Physical world, units and measurement, and it's the first chapter. Second chapter will be the kinematics. Kinematics la theriyuma, we will learn about 1D motion, and 1D motion means one dimension. This is also called as what straight plane motion solluvaanga. Okay, then we have two dimensional motion. 2D and 2D means what? Plane. So we will be looking at something called as angular motion. Angular motion will be a special case of the 2D motion. We will learn about all these things, but ingena theriyuma, we need to understand that angles are also related to the physics. Okay, so we do use angles in science. So angles, right, mainly speaking, we have two types of angles. First one that we are aware of already in our mathematics, what is it called as plane angle or 2D angle and solluvaanga. So plane angle can be also called as what? 2D angle. This is the angle that we normally look at, like say angle of the arc, right? In a circle we make an arc of the circle, angle of the arc, remember? So what is the formula? Length of the arc is equal to what? Radius of the arc into angle. Length of the arc, S is equal to what? Here S and normally we will use L. Okay, anything. So length of the arc is equal to what? The radius of the arc into theta. Theta is what? This theta is symbol for what? Angle, right? Theta is generally the symbol we use for angle. So this is basically what we call as the plane angle. So this is the angle in a plane. This is the plane angle or angle in a plane. அடுத்தது என்ன தெரியுமா? This is the 2D angle. The one that we just have to know the definition, because like luminous intensity, we are also not going to use this in our physics, right? We don't have the actual 3-dimension problem. Solid angle sonna, this is actually 3D angle. What is solid angle? It is a 3D angle. We don't have in our plus 1 plus 2 syllabus physics, right? We don't have the real 3D. What we have is just on the 3D word of visualization. So what we have is just 3D visualization. We don't have the real 3-dimension problems. We have only 3D visualization maximum. So if we look at a solid angle, so this is the angle that is created in a 3D or space. What is a solid angle? It is the angle created in a 3D or a space. How do you think about it? See, in this diagram, right, think about a spherical shell. Think about a spherical shell. Okay, va? The spherical shell mela you have some area of this marked, or small area, you just mark it. Look at what is the angle on the spherical shell mela, you just mark some area. What is the angle that the area is creating at the center? And the angle eppadi varum? It will not be like in the 2-dimensional angle madiri kediyadu. It will be like what? It will be like an angle in a space. I can give you one more better example. Like if not this summer, normally I'm not sure about this summer, but generally whenever we get summer, right, we all will be fond of these ice creams. So think about ice cream cone. Okay, you see the angle at the tip of the cone. The angle at the tip of the cone, right? So on the tip if you just see the angle, that is not the angle in a plane. That is what? The angle in a space. If you see this kind of a cone, and I'll give you one more cone. If you see this kind of a cone, what you will generally say is, okay, here the angle is more, isn't it? So on the angle, right, that angle is called as what? 3D angle or solid angle. We just need to know the definition of it because we are not going to be using it. So how the solid angle is created? It is created in the space. I am giving you 2 examples for that. So think about a cone, like the ice cream cone. You see the tip of that the cone or the tip, right? From the tip you will see that surface அப்படியே வரும். The angle that they created the tip, right, that is what is called as the solid angle. So if you see a cone like this and another cone like this, what you clearly see, the second case you have more solid angle. Clear, students? So these 2 angles, right, are not related to the fundamental set. The angles, it is understood that okay, angles are required for measurement in science. In fact, the angular motion, right, we are going to be dealing in terms of the angles itself. But the thing is, these angles are not related to our 7 fundamental. What are the 7 fundamental? Length, mass, time, electric current, adukappuram temperature, then amount of substance, and then luminous intensity. So these 7 are not useful in deriving plane angle and solid angle. Like in the previous example we discussed panna madiri, what must we do? We must keep these 2 also as fundamental. Because we are not able to derive them, we should keep them as what? Fundamental. But the thing is, these 2 quantities, right, they have some slight difference from the rest of the 7. From the rest of the 7 fundamental, these 2 are slightly different. And the word 7 fundamental is also sort of used very often, that instead of again changing the list, what is made is that these 2 are separately called as supplementary, like the way we add a supplement, right? So already there is a main set 7 fundamental, adukku thaniya we are adding a supplementary. So what are these 2? Plane angle and solid angle, right? We call them as what? Supplementary. So totally we have 7 fundamental and 2 supplementary quantities, and rest all matadella, what are the others are all what? Derived. Clear, students? So this is what we have in terms of the classification of the physical quantities. Now when we are discussing about the physical quantity, they said a physical quantity is anything which we can measure. Okay, and we said what? A physical quantity will be clearly defined. Like acceleration or sonna, you will have a definition for it. Force and sonna, you will have a definition. What is force? Force is defined as what? The pushing or pulling effect. Pressure and sonna, you will have a definition for that. So a physical quantity will be clearly defined. Adillame we added one more point. Remember, what is it? It will have a standard unit. So what is a unit? What is a unit? A unit means the base value of expressing measurement. இப்போ ஒரு physical quantity நம்ம measure பண்றதுக்கு we require a base value. Like firstல நான் கொடுத்த examples என்னது? If say for example we have to tell what is the distance between our house to the railway station. ஒரு 10 km சொன்னா, if you say that it is 10 km, right? So இதுல 10 is the numerical value of the measurement. A kilometer is what? This is the base value. That is what we call as the unit. So always whenever we take a measurement, right? Whenever we take a measurement, the measurement will be done by using the base value. That base value is called as what? Unit. Okay. Now if you look at the measurement of every physical quantity, right? If you take any physical quantity, measurement you will have 2 steps. First step will be what? Choosing the unit. Suppose say for example we want to give what is the time for which this NEET physics class is happening. So by now almost we are nearing 1 hour, or we can say 60 minutes. Okay, or somebody can say 3600 seconds. So first person is choosing the base value or unit as what? Hour. Second person is choosing the base value as what? Minutes. Third person is choosing the base value as what? Seconds. So first thing is what? ஏதாவது நம்ம measure physical quantity measurement நம்ம எடுக்கணும்னா we need to be talking about first what is the unit. அதுக்கப்புறம் second step will be what? How many times the unit is contained in the given physical quantity. Like we are saying how much time our class is going, right? இப்போ 1 hour and சொன்னா we have a unit called as hour, and how many times that is coming? One time it is coming. In the measurement, how many times that hour is coming? One time. 60 minutes and sonna, how many times this minute is coming? 60 times. That is the total value of our measurement. Okay va? So if I say the same thing as 3600 seconds, then this is coming in how many times? If you have a second order value, if you have a second value, right, then that second is coming how many times? 3600 times. Okay, so if somebody is telling us, okay, the length of the rope is 10.2 centimeters, apdi sonna, what is the meaning of that? There is a unit called as centimeter, and the measurement is how many times of that? 10.2 times. Okay va? So this is how we look at the units. And when you have these units, right, mainly the moment you see a unit, like here time, we can measure in terms of hour, we can measure in terms of minutes, we can measure in terms of seconds. Similarly, distance, we can measure in terms of kilometer, centimeter, meter, mile, nariya. You can have various units for even a single physical quantity. Like for the length, we can have kilometer, meter, centimeter, mile, feet. We can have so many units for the same physical quantity. But when you look at these units, right, these units are generally seen as whether it is a standard unit or it is a non-standard. It's not a classification. I mean, it is not like a classification. Why we see the units as standard or non-standard is because whenever we are doing the academic calculations or academic studies, it is decided that we will not be using the non-standard. So whenever we are talking about the academic study or academic measurement, we will not be talking about the non-standard. Okay guys, so in the next class, right, we will start with how do we identify which of the units are standard and which of the units are non-standard, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so I guess whatever we have covered, mostly you are able to understand. See, the thing about every session that we are going through, right, is you need to come forward. So either the doubts or if you are feeling that some concept need to be discussed again or something, you need to, okay, so keep discussing things as we go on. Okay, I think this is it guys for today's session, and we'll see in the next class. Okay, so next class right now we are going to start with the identification. How do we identify these units as standard and non-standard? Okay va? So I think you guys had a good session today, and we'll see in the next class. All the best.